My lesson today is going to be a revisit. So I lied to the second grade group saying you won't have to write about adjectives because it's really the tail end of adjectives in the final text type as a mid-workshop. This is such a wonderful teacher question. How do we address situations when students don't have the appropriate prior knowledge? And getting all the teachers to use the same terminology. Well, one of our goals in this work is that we do this work K-12 and that all teachers are using the same terminology. And in places where I've seen that begin, it's pretty exciting. Although I've had things happen like second grade teachers going, oh my goodness, I have to change what I teach now because they already know what I used to teach. But that wasn't a bad complaint. But the students had writer's workshop and in a unit format for 2 years, and they had been using the content expectations, and those grammar things were starting to stick. I think we deal with this the way we deal with all the rest of the times when kids don't come with prior knowledge. We teach where we are, and then as we look at their work and as we confer with them, we have small groups that we pull. We step back and go into the valuable resources that are being created here, pull a mini lesson from a previous year, and teach that mini lesson where we need to, whole group, small group, or it just becomes a part of our conferring. And we're in process now, and so that progression is not in place in most districts. That's what we hope happens, and you're the people that are going to help make that happen.
So welcome back and good morning again. We have been celebrating each evening together as we plan and reflect and adjust, just as you do all of the time, to make sure that the next day really meets the group's needs. So if we think about our outcomes that we named on day 1, here we are on day 3. It feels longer than 3 days, not in a bad way, just because it's been so intense and so fast and so much work. I'm going to read aloud. We don't have this on all of the screens, so I'm going to read aloud for you. Think also as we read through this, like chronologically maybe about, okay, right, now this makes more sense. Now, yep, because we've done that. Now I get the big picture. So we had, of course, the outcome to develop with each other a deeper understanding of teaching grammar in context. There are many ways we teach all of the things that we need to teach. Our focus this week has been about teaching grammar right within the teaching of writing. And to try that, we also had that product goal of creating. We've created grammar glossaries for each grade level. We've created grammar calendars where we've sorted, so what makes sense to do when? And that work is still being refined, but for the most part, that's getting pretty solid for you. Of course, knowing it's just one way. And now we're ready to think about the mini lessons. The mini lessons to teach our language standards for our grade level, but in between writing instruction that has a different progression. How do we insert the language progression into the writing standard progression? Deep work, really deep work. We'll have an information writing lesson and grammar instruction embedded in that. We will be just working a little briefly with thinking about 3 different kinds of grammar mini lessons.
Bring your writer's notebook, which in second grade we'd call your RAN notebook, which means reading and analyzing nonfiction. So it'll just be the writer's notebook. And grab an informational text here from this table and a writer's, something you are right now is you are researchers. We have done our whole class research project together, and now we're working on our individual research projects. Yesterday, we took notes from illustrations and graphics and pictures in our text that we're researching right now. Some of you took notes from actual objects that we've brought in. And we've practiced taking notes from videos. We've taken lots of notes. Well, today, we're going back to our on the chart, which this is non-existent, so in your imagination, envision the chart that has the learning target, which is I can write notes. So today, we're going to act as researchers, taking notes from what other researchers have written. And here's my RAND notebook, which looks exactly like your RAND notebook, except yours is connected and mine's on the wall. So I'm going to use my book because my report's going to be on earthworms. You know how much I love earthworms. And I'm going to model for you taking notes, because we know that when we take notes, we don't just copy. We have to look at the information and decide what's important and write it down just as a note. It doesn't have to be a whole sentence. So I looked in my earthworm book in the table of contents, and one of the things that I think I know about earthworms is that they're brown and they're about as long as my finger, because that's what I find in my garden. That's why I'm doing my earthworm report. So I'm reading all sorts of worms in my book, in this chapter, because maybe there are other kind of worms I don't know about. Worms that live in the soil are called earthworms. There are several kinds of earthworms. Oh, okay. There are many different kinds of earthworms around the world. Worms come in many sizes and colors. Some are so tiny they're hard to see. Others, such as the giant earthworm of Australia, are as long as a car. Wow. And if you act with the ooh, the kids will like it even better. So I've got to decide what I'm going to write down. I think I'll write down different kinds. Oh, okay. And I think I will write down different sizes. Different sizes and colors. Okay, so did I write down everything that was on that page that I read you? No. I just wrote down different kinds, and so that's about appearance. So I'll put that sticky note in the appearance part of my RAND notebook. Let me see if there's something else. Okay, I have food. That's one of the categories that we're looking at. So let me go to my table of contents. Feeding. I think feeding's going to work. So I'm looking at this page, and it says, in the daytime, worms usually stay under the soil and feed on the roots of dead plants. And at night, when it is dark and damp, they crawl up to the surface and search for dead leaves. They drag the leaves under the ground. Okay, so I think I'm going to write daytime, roots, nighttime, leaves. All right, and I'm going to put that right here on food. Now, you brought one of the books that you're using to research for your report. So I'd like for you to just open maybe a page you've already read, maybe the page where you took notes from the picture yesterday, and I'd like for you to find one piece of information that you can put into your own words and you can put on one of the pages. I'll give you just a moment to do that. So once you've taken that bit of note in your RAN notebook, turn to your partner and show them, this is the note I took on this part of information. See how I put it in my own words. Go ahead and talk with your neighbor. All right. Researchers, thank you. One of the things I heard is I heard one partner say, I read this part, because remember, we don't have to read the whole thing. And then I decided these were important things, and here are the words I used. So there are some steps. I read this part because that was relevant for my report. I put it into my own, and so I just took that part, I put that part into my own words and wrote it in my notebook. Now, you may find as you do this something that I found about my writing. What I think I know, I thought earthworms were brown and as long as my finger. But what I read is that that's not always true. So, I think I can change this and make it still true and say some earthworms, and I'm just abbreviating, are brown and as long as my finger. So that can go into my yes, that's confirmed. Because some are. I just had to add one word. We'll talk about that kind of word. So today, researchers, you're going to do exactly what you just did. You're going to head back to your seats, you're going to read some more in your book or your article, and you're going to take some notes. You're going to decide if those notes, which category they go in, although I know your article may not have categories, we're pretending. And you may find some things that you thought you knew that are misconceptions, or you may find some things you thought you knew that you need to change, and then they can go into, yes, it's confirmed. Okay? Off you go.